So here's my phone and here's my card, and I just tap it on top and there's a notification coming up right there. So I tap on it and it has to recognize my face, and then up pops the information immediately, ready to be saved.
Welcome, friends, to a podcast with interesting people. Today, my guest is Pieter Limburg. You may have heard about him. He is founder of Mobilo Card, and he's doing this really interesting RFID, NFC card, the last business card that you will ever own, potentially, or as they call it sometimes, smart card. But before we're going to jump into that topic and tell you a little bit more about what is that technology, how can it help you and your business, I want to bring Pieter on and talk about his journey as an entrepreneur, and then we're going to end up talking about what he's doing right now. But he has, fairly rich background in starting a business and startups. He's in New York right now. He's kind of, we get his perspective of what's going on over there, how things are being impacted by, Corona and everything. But we want to tease out some of the tips from him and some of his experiences to kind of help you, the entrepreneur, the business person who's starting a new business or running a business, how to be successful. And hopefully you'll get some good stuff from Pieter to share with us. So without further ado, here's Pieter Limburg. Pieter, how are you? It's good to have you on the show, and I'm excited to finally connect with you because we try to kind of connect one couple of times to kind of have the intro call, and finally we made this one, and we're just going to roll with the show. So thank you for being on the show, man.
Hey, thanks, Adrian. Also, thank you for that wonderful introduction. That was very nice of you.
This podcast, what I'm doing over here is conversations with interesting people, and sometimes we talk about people to kind of give this platform, give people a little bit more information about who we are talking to, what can we learn from them, and then we also talk about interesting things. So this show is going to be kind of combining both, where we're going to learn a little bit more about you. How did you come to be where you are? What are you doing? And kind of learning from your journey. That's one of the things that I really enjoy talking to my guests, is getting their perspectives and getting interesting lessons learned, so that whoever's watching this show, they can learn from our mistakes and then just kind of propel forward. So tell us a little bit more about you. How did you come up with what you're doing right now? But also tell us a little bit about your history, and we'll take it from there.
I think an interesting starting point for me was that the first official registered business, I was 18 years old and I went on my bike. I mean, I was born in the Netherlands and I lived in the Netherlands. Right now, you do everything on your bike in the Netherlands. Your bicycle, right? I shouldn't say your bicycle. So I ran off to the Chamber of Commerce to register my first venture, which was computers made to order. This was 20 years ago, so computers were not mainstream yet. They were much tailored to the needs of the person. So in this case, it would be for gaming or photo and video editing. So graphically high-level computers. And during high school, I learned to put together these machines and gotten some requests around me. And then later learned that it wasn't really always about the quality of the computers, but more the customer service that you provide it with. So it was new technology. Not everybody gets it, understands it. There's always a lot of people super interested in new things, and they just want some help getting to know what's cool and what's new. So that was my first venture.
How did you so you started with that, learn how relationships are important in business, not only the product, right? And I think a lot of companies right now realize how important that is, especially now in the COVID pandemic situation that we're in, where people who are just buying products that they need, like necessities. Okay, that's just typical marketing, buy two for one, all that kind of stuff that speaks to people, right? But the companies that are have good relationships with their customers find that they are more resilient, because people will go through those extra steps. They will do extra things to kind of support the company that they have a good relationship with. So it's kind of good to hear that your business journey kind of reinforced that as well, because that's kind of like how I feel about it right now when I do these interviews or just do interactions with companies. It's like it's all about that relationship. Tell me a little bit more. What else have you future, and what have you done after that? After building custom computers, where did that take you next?
Well, it went really well, and so well that my mom was mad because my school obviously wasn't priority anymore when you're making money, and my dad was pretty proud because he thought, oh wow, this guy actually built a business in a couple months' time. So that was really fun. I had to quit though because I had to skip school on Friday because there was a truckload of stuff coming in, and our living room looked like a technology center, which wasn't. Yes, an assembly line. It was like parts all over the place, from the kitchen table to the salon table. So I finished high school, and at the end of the year, organized a party for our end of year, and rented out a club, and did that a couple more times after that, but then for myself. So I started to see what it's like to organize a party, rent out a club, print tickets, do some design for the flyers and all of that stuff. But my dad said, well, you got to quit fooling around now. You got to find something real to do. And that's when I took over a retail store, because at that time retail was really still hip and cool, and like brick and mortar stores were still a thing. But I also saw the potential in e-commerce. With the internet coming up, and people slowly trying out to buy things online. So I was one of the first in the Netherlands to combine online and offline shopping in one concept, omni-retail as they call it today, or mixed channel retail. And so to select a product on the website and then pick it up in store, I was one of the first to launch that 15 years ago in the Netherlands. That really helped me build a business and go from a couple $100,000 to a couple $1 million in revenue, and a second store location, and so on and so on. Until funny thing is that at that time I truly realized how relationships are important, and how we were not selling photo cameras, but we were selling beautiful photos. Right? You would come there, the thing you want is not a box with this Canon or an Nikon or a lens or whatever. The thing you want is gorgeous photos of your kids, or for that special, for that special vacation, or for that moment to reward yourself. But it's just much more than that box and the thing in it. It's really everything around it that makes people want to come back for advice, and whether that's online or offline, that's still the same, right? You have things you buy out of necessity, like toilet paper, or you buy things that you want to enrich your life with, but it's not really about the product; it's about the end result. And so that's another step forward that I made, that we did, that other stores weren't doing. So we were building a community. I had a forum. We were doing workshops and everything to bring people together with the same idea of what good photos look like, and how to make better pictures and all of that stuff. So that was really fun. Also, after about 8 or 9 years, I realized that I was kind of a slave of the manufacturers, where the big brands like Samsung and Canon and Nikon and Minolta at the time, they were dictating what you sell. And if you do not have influence over the product that you're selling, and customers ask for something else, there's no way to help them. So when there came a moment that I was able to sell the store, take a step back, reorient kind of what I wanted to do, there were a couple of things on my list. And one was, I want to do something, I want to work with a company that makes its own product, that really defines the set of parameters that the customers work with, that has an influence on making the product, and that plays internationally. That was the second part. I was very much locked in my own region with your retail store. Even though you're playing online, it's still you have the strongest presence regionally, so that's where you sell the most. And then the third thing was I really wanted it to be innovative. I wanted it to be cutting edge. I wanted it to be very, very different than what other people are doing, because I was really liking the complex products. The cameras I sold were digital photo cameras. We were on the shift from analog to digital, and I really liked the fact that you can make a difference there in education and helping people out with new things. So those three things were on my list. And I stumbled upon an article on LinkedIn about 3D printing. I thought, wait, what? Is there a thing such as 3D printing? I knew photo printing, I knew large format printing, I knew business card printing, but I had never heard of 3D printing. So started to dive into it, and then I just applied for a very, very basic, I don't want to say, but it was a team lead job for to run a small supply chain team in the south of the Netherlands for this tech startup. And I had also never been involved with a company that runs on venture capital. So I thought that if you needed to start a company, you need to have money, and then you go to the bank for a little bit more money, and then that's how you start a company. I had never known that there were things like venture capital or other ways of financing your business. So I was super intrigued, and wrote my first ever job application in 15 minutes. And I'm sure I can still, I actually, my first boss in my life, I was 31, and all of a sudden I had a boss. She sent it to me, I think, when she left the company. She said, "Hey, Peter, here's your job application, by the way. I kept it." And she was fantastic. I'm still in touch with her. But she, running global supply chain, had launched previously the Kindle at Amazon, or the content for the Kindle. So she had done supply chain in a very different way, but it was definitely something to aspire to. So I thought, hey, 3D printing, tech startup, it's international. It's certainly the culmination of defining your own product, producing a service, and then super innovative. So it hit all my boxes that I wanted to check off. So I went to apply for a job, and probably made more mistakes in my English grammar and everything else in 5 minutes than you can think of. But hey, I got the job, and a week later I started, and that's how I got to do some 3D printing.
Where did that take you? And before you jump into more into 3D printing, I want to ask you about mistakes, because that's a thing that is something to consider. Some people take mistakes as failures, and some people take mistakes as valuable lessons that you learn and grow from. What were some of yours? Share some mistakes that you made that, if you would go back right now, it's like, oh gosh, Peter, or like that was the best thing that happened to you because of that, this and that, and something else happened. Share some of your mistakes that you learned from.
Yeah, I've made plenty, that's for sure. More than I can remember, more than I want to remember, obviously, also. And to piggyback on the thing of like failure versus learning by doing. And this is, I'm going to quote somebody, the previous CEO of the 3D printing company at that time, the CEO, he said, if I knew how difficult it was to build a 3D printing company, I would have never done it. But he built a company from 3 people to 300 people in less than 10 years' time, an incredible journey, and basically built a service that didn't exist before. But is that a mistake? I don't know. It's to me, it sounds like you're doing something that, sure, everybody tells you it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, you're never going to make it, right? You're going to hear all those things. Impossible, right. Yeah, like just smack you in the face, say, hey, impossible. And that's the moment you got to believe in yourself and say, okay, well, let me try it. And then the other mistakes that I've made on the other side, so I've never had the problem of not starting anything that I didn't believe in. I did go all in every now and then when I shouldn't. So there's also this fine line between overdoing it and throwing everything behind it, where I definitely learned to first figure out traction. And it's not so much that you're going to lose money or that you're going to lose people's trust or other things. You'll gain that back. You'll make the money later or at some other point, or maybe you don't even need it. You can be perfectly happy with a lot less money also. So what you're going to lose is time. And that is the most important thing, I think, and most important asset, resource, whatever you want to call it, but you're never going to get time back. So if I had made mistakes, then I would look at myself, say, okay, now we wasted 2 weeks, and that's a problem. So before you go all in, test and trial, see if there's traction, just dip your toes in the water. And it's not to be careful because you don't believe in it, but you might, lose some time here and there. And if you learn something, then you didn't lose time, then you learned a valuable lesson. But if that extra learning is going to propel you forward in the right direction, then it was a good learning. If it's not going to do anything for you, yeah, sure, then you certainly made mistakes. So I made mistakes in cultural differences. I moved from the from the Netherlands to New York. I've had more HR conversations than I wanted to, simply because there's a difference in sense of humor. There's a difference. We as people, most of us, we mean well. But when you're not a native, it sometimes comes out of your mouth the wrong way, or it gets interpreted the wrong way, or you get misquoted, or there's like a bunch of things. Or if people really want to mess with you, something also that I didn't understand or wasn't even prepared for was the whole political game. The company grew, when I joined, I was, I think, employee number 56. And when I left, there were more than 300 people. So you go from gossip culture, tapping somebody on the shoulder, hey, can you do this for me? And from a culture where everything is about, let's make this work, you go to a culture where there's massive funding and people's jobs are at stake, power comes into play. I had never seen that coming. So all of a sudden, I was still in the mode of like, okay, we're going to grow this company from 300 people now to 3,000 people, and we're going to take over the world. I also had to now have eyes in my back and watch out for other things. And yeah, that's definitely a mistake that I made. Also, something that I do not wish upon other people, right? I hope everybody will be in a situation where you don't have to think about that. Then you can all just happily work towards your goal. But hey, reality is different.
Right. It's something that it's a huge distraction, because when you are in that space where you not only you have to focus forward, but then you have to look back, so to make sure that no one is sabotaging you. And I don't know, I worked in New York. I had a startup in .com, end of .com era. It was an interesting experience. I'll share this with you, and I kind of experienced similar things. So what right now is known as a QR code, the two-dimensional barcode, is what me and my partners were pitching back in the day, like year 2000, when we were we had investment for $1 million, and it was very interesting because these very affluent, very smart investors, VCs, they could not wrap their brains around that there will be soon time when there will be cameras in the phones. And they were like, why would anyone would want to have a phone a camera in the phone? It makes no sense. It's going to be crappy quality, yada, 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 like no vision. And then, of course, everything happened like that. And now everybody's like, oh, QR code. Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense, right? But sometimes you kind of you butt your heads with people that just don't have that kind of, they can't make that mental step to connect those things. So, but it was an interesting experience, and working especially in New York, which is cutthroat, high competition. There's a lot of startups. There's a lot of companies coming up with things. It is a almost sense of that kind of urgency to push forward, and people will do almost anything to kind of get there. And those places I would never want to work in, because it's just such an unhealthy environment. Again, it's not constructive. People are just kind of, like you said, there's money on the line, there's careers on the line, there is just egos on the line for sure. And that's when you're in that space, it may push you, but at the same time it's destructive, because you're like, if you need to waste resources to always look over your shoulder so no one is messing with you and your stuff, then it's just counterproductive. So that's something that I definitely did not enjoy. But how did you deal with some of that stuff? Was it just kind of like at some point you just said like, look, I just don't want to be here. I don't want to do this? Or how did you deal with when you were a victim of these kinds of shenanigans?
Well, it takes time to realize what's going on first. So like first you have no idea what's going on, and you're like, hey, this is just weird. And then it's too busy, right? In a startup and a fast-growing world, your to-do list is always longer than what you can get done. So it's also like, am I going to waste time on this, or I'm just going to step over it and deal with it later, or not deal with it at all? Right. And then I came to a realization that although I am so happy with the opportunities that the system in America offers companies to start hiring people, and so what I want to say is that the market is super fluent and liquid. You can hire people and fire people really easy. Well, you know that if you hire somebody in France, you're going to pay them off for the next 17 years. And I'm exaggerating, but it's almost reality. And well, the same is like that in the Netherlands. So at first I thought, okay, so the European system is ridiculous, period. You can never hire anybody because you will marry them. You will always be with them for the rest of your life. And then I thought, wait a minute, but why don't we have that as much in Europe as we have that here in the US, that elbowing kind of thing? And it doesn't only have to do with ambition, because ambition, I think, is pretty healthy. Right. But on executive level, people fearing for their jobs because they can get canned any single minute. That's not a healthy situation, because people will start to stop speaking their mind. They will stop being themselves. They will stop servicing things that are necessary that we need to deal with. And I don't think we should get too political, but I do believe that it could be, and I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I did come to the realization that if everybody would have a little bit more security, maybe not a lot, but just a little bit more, like a yellow card instead of immediately the red card or something like that, that would bring so much more, that would release everybody of so much more tension. And I think it would be beneficial. So a different solution is that you work with a team that you trust. So if you look for people to work with, the basic only question that I have is, do I trust this person? Do I trust this person to run customer service, to talk to my customers? Do I trust this person to cut a deal, to maybe talk about delivery? Are we going to be on time? Can we live up to what we promise? It's really important to me that you do what you say what you do. Right. So trust would be the basic foundation and the only thing that matters first, and then everything else. If you could step into a time machine, I typically ask that question because it's very revelatory in a way that, what would you do if you could step into a time machine and, dial back and see yourself and give yourself some advice in this area, what we just talked about, which is this kind of competitiveness and maybe like an unhealthy environment where people are like really, compromising their moral compass because the fear factor is just so high that they will be just, really controlled by that fear instead of focusing on building that relationship and the trust that you talked about. What would you tell yourself if you could do that, if you could step back in the time machine and give yourself an advice? Just to be sure, it wasn't the situation at Shapeways for sure wasn't unhealthy or because I had a great time and I learned so many things. It's just small blips and things that pop up that you want to that you highlight because you asked for it. But I want to say the majority, and certainly 99.9% of the time, I had an incredible time, and I still speak to a lot of colleagues. And I want to thank everybody and everybody for the time that I had there. So just making sure that nobody will describe it as a toxic environment, because it wasn't. It was fantastic. But there were some moments where you think, oh, holy shit, is this happening? So if I would give myself advice to go back in time, my personality is set up in a way, I don't know. I hope I got this from my mom and dad, but I barely have regrets, and I do think that a lot of things, practically everything happens for a meaning and for a reason, and it has a certain meaning, and you got to go through things to learn about it. So the only mistake that you don't want to make is if you make the same mistake again for the second time. So I really think if I would go back in time, would I do anything different? Probably not. I'd still want to have the same experience, even though you find yourself at some moments not knowing what to do, and just realize that everybody has those moments. And when you feel left out, when you feel that you don't know what you want to do, I was talking to a friend the other day, it's hard to find something that you really, really, really want to do. There's jobs there, even today, but what is good for you? What work-life balance are you looking for? What makes you tick? What drives you? And are you going to accept something that, well, knowing that is going to be a big step ahead of most people if you know what you want to do? So finding out is number one, and then actually finding something that really fits what you want to do. I realize that I'm a terrible employee, for instance. Like I'm not sure if
why.
Luckily, the company is going well, because otherwise I would have to apply for a job somewhere, and I'm just.
Why do you think you're a terrible employee?
Because I always speak my mind. I always say what I want to say. Half of the time I'm right, half of the time I'm wrong. So I'm gonna get laughed at half of the time, or going to tell me that I'm crazy, and it's both are fine with me. But
right.
That's who I am, and unfortunately for other people, that's the way I am. Yeah.
Well, let me chime in on that. I think that, so you're like, well, at least second or third. Well, maybe most of my guests, when I asked them that question about like if you could give yourself advice, step into a time machine, go back and give yourself some advice, what would you change? And surprisingly, most people that I talk to, they say like, I wouldn't change anything, because I am where I am today because of all these mistakes or right decisions, what have you, I have done in the past. So if I would have put myself on a sort of like, I don't know, easy track or a different track, I wouldn't be here where I am today. And so that's an interesting perspective to have, because everyone would, typically people think like, oh, I would just totally like tell myself like all these different things to kind of propel myself forward, but then you wouldn't have the experience. Like, made a mistake, I screwed up, I said something that like later really shaped me, right? Because you're like, oh, I really should have said that. I haven't thought about it then, but now I'm like thinking about it. I saw the repercussions of it, and that really reshaped me. So that's kind of interesting to hear. Also, comment on. Whether you're a bad employee or like you're not the greatest employee because you speak your mind. I think you really hit on something over here. I think it's so important to be working in an environment that you can speak your mind, because otherwise you're just becoming a yes person. You're just kind of nodding your head to everything to kind of go with the flow. And that really, good executives, when they actually surround themselves with people that will bring different perspectives. I'm not saying like, codgers or like these just for the sake of argument people will argue things. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying people who are not afraid to speak their mind to bring you a different perspective, because that's going to benefit you, and they realize that's needed too. And I think that's such a valuable thing to kind of have employees like that have that kind of trust with you, that they're not doing it out of malice. They're doing it because they see a different perspective and they want to provide input, versus just people that are just so insecure in their job or fearing for their job that they will not speak their mind, and they will basically let you fail because they saw something that you could have taken in and were like, wow, okay, had we known that? Yeah, most people did. They just didn't tell you.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a thing. And I once, I think it was Outliers from Malcolm Gladwell. I was reading the book, and he described. And it could be that I'm misquoting here, but I think there was a scenario where he was talking about why they were doing research on why planes crash, right? Everybody knows that planes are safe to fly, that it's one of the few Six Sigma industries where there's less than 3.4 on a million instances that something goes wrong. And still they wanted to improve quality, and they figured that there was a problem between the captain or the officer, the highest ranking person in the airplane, and then the second in command, that they weren't that if these two weren't able to talk to each other on an equal level, that the second in command would sometimes say, hey, maybe we need to bank left a little bit, right? And the pilot says, well, yeah. Nothing happens, right? And then, maybe we should go up a bit, or fly a little higher, or take a different trajectory. And what the second in command really wanted to say was, dude, you're flying into a mountain. And that didn't happen in a certain scenario, and that's what you want to avoid at all costs.
Yeah, the communication is so key. Everybody tells you that. It's kind of like, yeah, everybody knows that, but then execution of is is what really matters, right? Just like ideas, there's a million ideas out there. It's all about execution. If you don't have execution, you don't have anything. So I totally hear what you're saying with that. One of the biggest things that we kind of accrue along the way in our lives, as we kind of, especially entrepreneurs, when we learn and fail and learn and things like that. And when you mentioned 3D printing, 3D, there's a really good sort of not analogy, but it's like a parallel. 3D printing allows you to do prototypes and fail quickly, right? So when you mention that, like, hey, test things out, that's kind of like market validation, right? 3D printing is such a great place to when you build products, because it allows you to build these things, fail quickly, learn from that, rinse and repeat, and continue, right? So that is such a great recipe for, I'd say, business in general. You want to validate your market. You want to prove that what you think, what's right in this here in the noggin, right, is really what the market is if the market is agreeing with you, right? What have you learned from your time when you were doing in the 3D printing area? Was some of that kind of cross-pollinating later on in your life when you were starting other businesses, or what other kind of things you got out of being in 3D printing space?
Yeah, no, that was just one hell of a time. I had an amazing time at Shapeways, helping other entrepreneurs building out their products. Right, you kind of get almost like a VC or a marketing agency. Or a bank. They all have this unique look into the kitchen of companies, of ideas, of people's minds, while they are testing new markets, while they are testing new products. One of the cool things was that the community in the 3D printing world was 50% geek, nerd, crazy intelligent, smart people that knew everything about engineering. And then the other half were these brilliant designers that much more had a sense of aesthetics and of what is beautiful, what is not, and how do I communicate with shapes and
right.
Artists.
The form and function.
So, right, exactly. So you see where these two worlds come together. All of a sudden, you get a certain magic, and it was just every day it was another adventure. I remember the first week I came to work a couple of days in, and I saw a bunch of plastic parts on my desk, and I like, hey, who put this on my desk? And turned out to be a prototype of something from the Assassin's Creed game. Like, I think at some point, and this was 2012, I believe. So Assassin's Creed was super hot, PlayStation 3, and it had a device under, the main character had a device under his
right, his forearms.
Wrist.
It was springing like
yes.
these blades, right?
So somebody made that. Real. Like in 10 pieces, it was on my desk. You could put it together, and then you put it inside of your sleeve, and you could shoot knives from out of your ridiculous. Like, oh wait, we've built them. So that's when you realize that you created a monster, right? So it's no longer a VHS copy machine, and that all of a sudden you can copy movies. No, it's much worse than that. You can make anything you want and replicate it. And I wasn't still grasping the full power that 3D printing brings to consumers. Like, all of a sudden, you don't need to phone China and order 10,000. No, you can make it today, and you can have it in your hands tomorrow. And it's just, the power of that is grossly underestimated. That all of a sudden you can produce where it makes sense in hours instead of in months. And you can iterate on every single item because there's simply no cost to innovation anymore. Right. Startup costs are zero. It's you only pay for the material you use, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So it's been such a, and if you give those powers to people will do great things with it. So we've seen from incredible stories like a little 8-year-old kid that goes to mommy and mom asks him, like, what do you want for your birthday in 2 weeks? And then he said, I'd like a ducky submarine. Okay, says mom, you can have a ducky, you can have a submarine, but a ducky submarine would be hard, not impossible. But and then dad says, oh wait, draws up something on paper and says, like this?
Like this, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so now we go from paper sketch to a 3D model, and the end story is that this little boy got a ducky submarine, 3D printed, and the power in those simple stories. And obviously, I'd had this in my pitch, and it would be smooth, and I would everybody would be, oh, this little boy ended with the gift that he wanted, not knowing that it was previously impossible before this technology. But yeah, those are the things that you see. You see small companies, 1 or 2 people that do work hard in the weekends, and make things for diabetics. Have an insulin pump, and they have asked the manufacturers of the insulin pump for years, can you make a clip to attach my phone to it? Because I'm always walking around with these 2 devices anyway, so why not combine it? And then while you're at it, can you make a clip to that I can put it on my belt also? So, and then the manufacturers always said, yeah, we're in the insulin pump business, not in the accessory business. Right. And they said, there's so many phones, so like tomorrow there'll be another Samsung phone or another Huawei phone or whatever brand. Why would we even bother? This is going to be obsolete, and we're selling insulin pumps and not everything else. But it's huge thing if you have to carry this pump every day around with you, and it can be a huge inconvenience. You already feel that you're different. So I don't want to speak for diabetics, but so what happens that over a weekend, some people decided to jump on that on the forum and say, hey, we're going to put something together. And I think within a week we had 21 iterations of a couple of people working together on the design, and then it was a couple of days later, it was for sale on the Shapeways store. And those are things that you are launching products with minimum input, with maximum input, minimum effort, lots of iterations, and it doesn't cost anything. You can put it online for sale. The moment somebody orders it, it gets manufactured and shipped, and boom, solving people's problems. That's amazing.
It is, and back in the day, it was kind of, and actually maybe there's still kind of mentality about that these days too, but I think it's definitely changing, where 3D printing was more of a fad. It was like, we can print these things, they do look terrible, and it just, you had to have these Stratus or whatever, those huge 3D printers that cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they could do something that was usable in some way. Now you literally can print a product in your home, and it's a usable part. It's something that you can actually utilize. It's not some kind of a little Mickey Mouse that you're going to put on your desk or something that's not functional. You can literally build things that are quality, engineering strength, all the characteristics that you would have from a finished product that you would buy, from a commercial producer or manufacturer. And so it really is getting to that point that it's amazing what you can imagine. You can really just build in your home, and I think that's kind of the gap that's kind of closing right now, and it's just amazing space. So I'm really excited about what kids and people and in the future will be inventing, because literally the sky is the limit. You can just come up with things. So that probably have given you that, I don't know, experience, or maybe that sense of wow, we are in this time where we can literally come up with things that previously were either impossible or very expensive to do. So almost everything is possible to do. And how did that shape you to go to the next step? Is what you're doing right now the following thing that after you were working in a 3D printer, or was there something else that you did before Mobilo Card?
Well, there's a couple things in between. And most of my time went to working with great people and putting together this company. And I started in this little corner in the Netherlands, in Eindhoven, and running a small team of 3 people. And then slowly, step by step, I joined the management team, and in the end was responsible for global business development and sales. Through that journey, more and more you invest your all of your time and bandwidth to the job. And I like working. I love working. It's really important to me that you have fun working. So that was all great. But the moment you realize that it's no longer for you, we amicably said goodbye to each other, and I left the company, took a couple of months off, got married. That was a long time planned, but I got married with my wife. In the process, I'd moved from the Netherlands to New York. I'd been here for a year in 2015. We did the long distance thing for a year. Our relationship survived that. So when she said, "Hey, I want to join you in New York," that's the moment of those words are very, very important to hear from a person that you love, and that's on the other side of the ocean. So when she said, "I would love to move," we made my home our home, and I immediately, took a couple months to get the courage, but asked her to marry me, and then we got married a couple of years later. So that happened first. So you take a little bit of time off, reset, look around you, and then figure out, because most of the best things that I learned in my life came in hindsight. It's never like when you're doing it, but like what happened here. Do a post-mortem or retrospective is probably a better positive word for it. Think about what went right, what went wrong, what and why were the things behind those things, and you learn from that. So then I still needed to pay rent, so I started to do some consulting, at least monetizing my experience and my know-how of 3D printing and the industry. And then I stumbled upon something. I had done research on RFID and NFC because I wanted to make one card to rule them all. I'm sure you when you look in your pocket, you have an NFC card or an RFID card, I should say, one for the PATH train, one for the subway, one for your WeWork space, one for your building, one for the gym. Then there's a couple of those chips in your credit card. Then there's maybe your loyalty card for your other favorite coffee shop or whatever. Like these chips are, if you would open a card, it's a little antenna all around, but these chips are maybe like 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters. They're very, very small. So why can we not have one card and then digitally assign or emulate or whatever? Turns out that there are, of course, 15 different standards. So there's high frequency, low frequency, there's chips from this manufacturer, chips from that manufacturer, different standards. Because of course, we have learned nothing from all those phone chargers and whatever that are all different. We keep making different systems. So why not make also a gajillion different chips and ruin that too? So no way that will work. But then I had already bought some scanning equipment and then done my research, and I thought, okay, well, we'll park it. Then I came back from a trade show in, I think it was September in Detroit, when you could still fly and meet people.
Right. Good old days.
The good old days, yes. And it was 11 p.m. I was in my hotel room, and a stack of 60 business cards is eyeballing me. And then there's, on the left side is the menu for the bar. I want to drink a beer because I've been speaking to people all day and just want to sit at the bar and not talk and have my beer in peace because it's been a long day. Or I'm going to write emails to these 60 people that I've spoken to and make sure that they don't forget about me and actually do some business. So the salesperson in me says, why can I not just magically put this stack of cards in my CRM for Salesforce or HubSpot or Pipedrive or whatever you're going to use, and then do that in a couple seconds and then go to the bar. And I realized that this is the last part of the funnel of the tool set of a modern salesperson that is not digital. There's a good amount of people, especially in Europe, that say, well, I don't even carry business cards, or I think it's and they have their motivation for it. A couple of them, some people say it's old-fashioned, some people say it's useless, some people say it's a burden to the environment, and I agree, I think, with everybody to say that a business card is not the way it used to be. The magic is gone. I don't know. Maybe you remember that you got when you got your first own stack of business cards. You look at it, you see your name, you see the title, and like pride, right?
Right. I mean, it was a status. It was a status almost marker where you were like, "Wow, I'm successful enough to own my own business card, to have my own business card." It used to mean something, and some cultures are still like that. In fact, in Japan, like they give you like business card with two hands, and it's part of the culture, it's part of the traditions, part of that exchange. So, I actually listened to one of your other. You were on another podcast, and you were talking about the impact that we don't realize that's happening behind the scenes. You mentioned it over here, which is, there's gazillions of these business cards being printed every single day. And that's just a lot of paper that we're using up trees and everything. There's really no excuse. In the past, maybe the excuse was, well, we don't have anything better. What do you want me to do? Tattoo it on you? It's like you have to have something, right? Nowadays, with electronic, with everything being digital and it's like there's almost no excuse to do that, right? So I definitely subscribe to that. So for those who don't know what NFC and RFID is, in layman's terms, explain to them what is NFC and how does that fit into your product right now, Mobilo Card?
Yeah, so NFC is a subgroup of RFID. RFID means radio frequency identification, which means that you somehow can identify something wirelessly. And NFC is a subgroup of it. Near field communication is the term that if you would spell it out.
Yeah.
So acronym. Thank you. Yes, I always mix the two up. And it is an antenna with a little chip, but there's no battery in it. So the cool thing is that you hold it close to something that is powered, and simply by the power of the device that is close by, it picks up. So there's information going from in this case, phone, and it only reaches half an inch. And when it reaches this small antenna, it's barely enough power to bounce back and forth and send a message with the incoming signal. So that small message then results into a link that opens up your Mobilo Card profile. And that profile can be triggered to do a couple things. It could show your contact details. So Adrian, and it will have all of your phone numbers or your email addresses or your LinkedIn or maybe even a PDF or a sign up, whatever you prefer. Yes. It could also show more like in a more digital or more marketing branded kind of landing page that could be very personal. That could show your mission statement or your most visited podcast or top 10 tips for being on a podcast or whatever you prefer. So it could also trigger some sort of a special personal landing page. And then the third thing it could do is it could turn into a lead generation tool. Because 9 out of 10 times, salespeople, me included, are slightly selfish, and giving away details is good, but getting contact details is better. So if I meet you, I want to be in control of the conversation. I want to reach out the next day and say, "Hey, we had such a great time yesterday. Now it's time maybe to see if there's a business opportunity here for both of us." If I only give away my contact details, there's nothing I can do. I want to gather those leads, I want to document them, and then I want to put them in my CRM system. So I make sure I follow up with all of them, follow up timely, follow up correctly. So I also want to add some notes and make sure that his cat's name was XYZ and whatever. Because it's impossible for at least my brain to remember everything. My wife somehow remembers everything, but I don't. Now that's not a dad joke.
I agree with you. I think my wife is the same way. She remembers things that I would never remember, especially those that she can use it. Like, hey, remember that time when you did that? You didn't get that. You didn't take garbage out. I had to roll it out myself.
Yes, and I actually was hinting, and I agree, that was almost the stereotype joke that you would make, which is, again, I think in this day and age, we shouldn't, because it's not true. And my wife is just this, she has that social gen that I don't have, in terms of, hey, remember this person's birthday, or remember, I only know remember good friends for the bad jokes that they make. And my wife knows just so much more. And so what I do is I use technology to make up for my own mistakes and problems and weaknesses. So and in this case, a CRM has made such a difference in any business that I ran. So a CRM, to me, is the first thing you start with. So you have a great business idea, but if you come to execution, which you also already mentioned, a CRM is really important. And if you meet people, you want to document that, because if you don't document it, you don't follow up with everybody. If you don't follow up with everybody, your conversion goes to shit, and that results into less deals. Simple.
Right. And for those who are not familiar, since you live in acronym land, CRM is customer relationship management software, right?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Basically,
customer relationship management tool.
Basically, what a Rolodex used to be, in a way, in a sense that it was a contact info, but also like what did you talk about, how, when did you meet, and all that stuff that you can bring up so that you can kind of reestablish that connection with someone and also remind them, hey, we met on this, this conference, and we talked about so and so. So that's where CRM comes in. All right, so now let's tie all of these things together. So the card that you have, and let's plug that in for you over here. So let's just kind of pop the web page in. So here's a screenshot of Peter's website. The Smart Card business card, and it basically it looks like a regular business card, right?
It does, and I feel that it's really important that this is not an app. Sure, there's an app connected to it, and you can do all kinds of cool things with it. But the moment I'm sure you recognize this. Maybe this was a really important realization for me. The moment you and I meet and we say, hey, can I add you on LinkedIn? We both take out our phone, and what happens? You're distracted because there's 5 notifications from this person. There's this email from the customer that is complaining, or reaching out and asking a question. There's all kinds of reasons to be out of the moment and sucked into something else. And definitely also a reason why I regularly switch off my phone for a little bit just to get things done, or when you're like having a really important talk with somebody, you want to be in the moment. And anybody that you're meeting personally, I think desires your full dedicated time of the moment where you're in it, and you have to be focused and right then and there. You have to be interested. You have to listen really, really carefully. You can't just hang back and say, oh, yeah. No, you have to be in it. And I think that's really important. So,
active listener. You want to be an active listener.
Yes. No phones allowed, period. So you get your card and you tap it on somebody's phone. They can have the phone, but I stay in control of the situation because I can still observe, can still respond, can still help. But every single time I ask somebody to open up their phone and type in a URL, something happened and you lose the momentum of the conversation.
Right.
So this is gonna save all of that because there's nothing else. You open the phone, you tap your card on it, and immediately pops up the right information that you want to have on their screen. So
the phone knows that when that NFC, when that near field communication is happening, it realizes that, I need to open up whatever application on my phone to take in that data, and then do something with it.
Yes, absolutely. So why don't we do a live demo? We have a video here, so I'll describe for the listeners what's happening. So I have here my phone with, of course, a million notifications that I just swiped away. So here's my phone, and here's my card, and I just tap it on top, and there's a notification coming up right there. So I tap on it, and it has to recognize my face, and then up pops the information immediately, ready to be saved. That's it. So you hit.
So for those of you who are watching this right now, you got Peter's phone number that he shared with the whole planet. And so please
everybody has it. It's okay.
Don't call him at 3 a.m. New York time. Or do. I don't know. But so that was very seamless, right? That was just one action, just kind of tap it. And what about like the phones that are like the older phones that don't have the NFC, that don't have that technology, or they don't have it enabled? What else people can do then? Is there anything else?
So the cool thing was doing the research, I thought, well, I'm sure only 1 out of 10 phones has this. It must be. No way. Apple introduced a long, long time ago, September 2018. Mind you, it's June 2020. So almost 3 years ago, they introduced this technology. So all those phones, compatible. Then Android. I ran into somebody with a phone from 2016. Tapped it on the back, worked. So Android was actually earlier, and they are usually a little bit more open with these kinds of new systems and technology. They're also happy to try a couple of things that maybe aren't true and tested yet. So I was surprised that a phone from 2016, I could just tap it on the back. But then for everybody else, and now you really have my phone number. So if you scan this QR code with your phone, just like the one you pitched, Adrian, scan this, and it'll open up exactly like I'm doing right now. It'll open up my profile. You can save my contact details in your phone. You can call me at 3 a.m. I won't hear it because it's going to be silent. But anytime, I usually pick up the phone, not if I'm in a meeting or with a person, I won't, but leave a voicemail message, send me an email. I respond because I'm a real human being and running a business. So why wouldn't I take my responsibilities in that?
So the backup is sort of like the 2D QR code type of 2D barcode, which you can scan. All smartphones right now have cameras built in, so it's easy. And a lot of updates that these operating systems get, they basically say, hey, if you open up your camera and if I see a two-dimensional barcode, I'm going to do something with it. I'm going to read it automatically. So again, in the same kind of fashion that with that card, with your NFC card, you don't have to launch an additional app. I mean, you have to launch the camera, but other than that, it's very transparent and it does the action. That's
isn't it great if you can just launch your camera, open up your camera, and it picks up on the QR code?
It picks up,
Smart stuff.
Smart stuff, it makes our lives easier. So what else can be done with this? I mean, do you paint a little bit of the future? I'm excited. I mean, I think that's a great thing for so many reasons, right? It saves some trees and help your business, help streamline your own life when you're doing business by just streamlining how you process these cards. You go to a convention, you have stack of business cards. They used to have these scanners, right? They used to have these scanners that you fed one card at a time, and it was doing OCR, it was doing optical character recognition just to try to figure out what's where. Like, oh, here's a phone number, I can extract that, but then it got confused. Oh, is that a phone number or a fax number? And then all these other things, and then a bunch of different designs of these business cards were affecting how effective these technologies were. And again, you had to do it one by one, and it was a just time-consuming thing. And I had one of those in the past, and I gave up at some point. So this is kind of taking it to the next level. You just tap it, boom, everything shows up, and what else is possible with this? I mean, if you're going to scan like 50 of those, how do I remember, who did I scan, when did I scan it, and all those additional things that I wanted to add in for the CRM? What's available in that space?
Yeah, so that's a lot that you're mentioning, and because we're getting into the details right now, I think it's really important that one, you should do this if you want to save money, because on average, every company spends $194 per employee per year on business cards. So that's a huge amount of money. If you have 1,500 employees, that's $300,000 a year that you spend on business cards. And then if you have such an amount of employees, there's also probably somebody that will take those orders and help you with it. So there might also be a full-time employee engaged with this. So save money. That's one. Two, save trees, which I think is just as important. According to our research, there's 27 million business cards printed every single day. Maybe temporarily a little less because of the situation, but still 27 million business cards per day for years. That has been the number. And that's just the US. So that's not even Europe or Asia. That's just in our lovely little country.
That's amazing.
And no, it's amazing. It's 1,500 trees, which is a football field full of trees every single day. Gone. It's a lot. It's
mind blowing.
Really a lot.
Mind blowing. Yeah, I'm happy I'm happy that you're visualizing this with like, because like, all right, 27 million business cards, but they're small. Like, but it's 1,500 trees. That's like that really talks to me. I'm like, wow, okay.
Every day, a football field, gone. And then if you think that's crazy, 88% of those business cards end up in the trash within a week.
Why do you think that's the case? Is it just because people like either didn't like, because it's part of exchange of the business card is almost like a social, well, it's a social exchange in a way, like, oh, I'll take your business card because it would be impolite not to take it. It's like,
Yes.
That's A.
Yeah.
B, whether I'm going to be doing business with you or not. Two, probably because, like, hey, may be useful someday, but then you kind of forget the context of, like, where did I meet that person, all those different things. And unless the card itself is just so what you needed right now, then it's useless, right? Like, hey, I need this service right now, then this business card is valuable. But then if I have like 1,000 of them, then I'm not going to be going through that stack of things, and I don't have context and all that stuff. So I can see how that loses its utility. What else? Why else people are throwing business cards out in a week?
Yeah, no, I think you hit all of them. I think the most important thing is that people are, it's impolite to refuse it. Although, especially when I would go home to the Netherlands, or I don't even call it home that much anymore. But when I would go back to the Netherlands, people just say, "Oh no, I don't need your business card," and then you're like, "Okay, right, that's fine." But yeah, they might ask you for your phone number. I put it immediately in the phone. But I was
like,
at
text me now, and then that's how you. But then you end up with partial info, right? Because then it's like, okay, I got your text. Now, like, what is your email? And then what is everything else? Do you have a website? And then now this becomes a chore because now you're kind of doing all that stuff manually.
Right. So you want to make it super easy to not only make the connection, but then also have a reminder to follow up. And that's where that connection to the CRM is so important. And we integrate with 2000. So through a Zapier integration, you can connect our system to Google Sheets if you prefer to work with that. You can connect it to Microsoft Office if you prefer to work in Excel. You can connect it to Pipedrive, which I think is one of the current most interesting CRM systems that is only super cheap compared to Salesforce, which is probably one of the best CRMs, but also very complicated and for large companies.
Right.
So there's so much you can do. You can, if you're a little less about sales and you're more about, hey, I'm more of a social person and I want you all to get an email when my new podcast comes on, you connect it to your MailChimp account, or like you can, there's so many things you can think of that you can automate from here on out, where it's just easy. Time is so precious. We started the show with that. So instead of spending your time doing administrative work, you can now spend your time socializing and or closing deals. So the connection, that automation part of the card, that to me is right now one of the reasons, and what I'm hearing from our customers is the thing they love.
Right. And in terms of starting a business, so like I love your product. I love that idea. In fact, I do have another one and one of the reasons why I got this. I wish I knew about your card before I got the other one, and I'm curious to actually kind of know if there's any differences. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the blue card, and so they're kind of like your competitor in a way that it's just an NFC card. How are some of the things that are different that you guys are doing different than they are, if you know?
I love that you're saying that's just an NFC card, and I know you're not meaning it like that. I hope maybe you are, but what it is just an NFC card. It's a little piece of plastic with a chip in it. But as with many things, your laptop is also just a piece of plastic with some metal in it. But it's the things you do with it that make the difference. It's the software that you put on it. It's the way you customize it, that you make it your own. Input is output. It's not just a piece of plastic. No, it's much more than that. It's the value you add to it. It's the superpowers that it gives you and how you use them, which makes the difference.
Right.
So if you have a blue social card, which is a fantastic company, and I think smart people and looks like backed by some serious investors, I believe they're going to be super successful. But and the name says it, they're more oriented towards the social part of the market. So they build tools for you to be social, for you to network, for you to, and I mean that more in a creative way. So I believe that their product is doing incredibly well with DJs, with artists, with teenagers, And that's fantastic. It's just a little different than what we do because we make a business card. And a business card, for the reasons that I think sets it apart, is it's really made for business people. It's really made for companies. It's really made for you starting your company, growing, scaling. So it's a little bit more oriented to that. And I really believe that anybody that starts a company has to focus and has to really make a solution for a special, not special as in different, but for a segmented, carefully sought out audience and make it perfect for them. You're much better off making a product that 10 people really, 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 really want than making a product that a million people say, right? You really want your own audience that loves what you're doing. And otherwise, if you can't find 100 people that love what you're doing, then you're probably making something that nobody wants.
Right. So, and by the way, here's the little blue card, Hello Blue. I should probably have both of them. I got to get yours.
You should. The Hello Blue card, again, is also a beautiful design card. I feel that from what the research we did is that you want to have a card that shows your identity, even if it's the chip that you use in the digital transportation that is important. It's certainly, you want to be a piece of marketing, a piece of branding, if that's important to you.
So
it should carry your logo.
Mine is not branded at all. It's just how it kind of, maybe I'm sure that I can brand it as well. But I know that you guys do that, right? You can kind of make it into, put my logo on it and all of that, so that it becomes a business card, not only a kind of contact card that just, right. Yeah. Okay, I get you, man.
So you can get the card with similar capabilities, but for 25% of the cost from us. Try it out. It's $7, and you can get a Mobilo branded card, and it can do all the things that the other cards do, plus especially tailored stuff for your business. Then for $39, you'll have a card that is completely customizable, and you actually get to work with our design team that works day and night. They're people. It's not robots. They listen to you. You send them a logo. You say, I want it a little bit to the left, to the right. This is the type of font that I had in mind. They'll design with you the card. For $39, an incredible price, you'll get your own card completely designed the way you want it, printed on the front and on the back, so customizable both sides. The only thing that we need on there is that QR code, which also, there's no QR code on the other card. So how are you going to deal with the 50% of the people that you're going to meet that do not have a phone that is NFC capable? Your card is useless. And then it becomes a piece of plastic, just an NFC card, right? And that's the difference. So full solution for the networking problem. And then there's the enterprise package that we have, and that has all the automation built in, and that has actually replacement cards built in. So it's simply one amount of money per year, but then you'll if you lose a card, you'll get another one for free. And then you have your CRM integrations and all of your automation set up. So you're going to save time, you're going to save money, and everybody will be happier.
Well, I need one in my life, so I'm going to be talking to you to get one of those. I'm excited about what else can be done with it as a token, because it is a physical token, right? So it allows you to then have, other than transferring data, it can have some actionable things that you can tie into with the automation. I think that's definitely something that makes it way more valuable than just a business card, if none of the other reasons speak to you. So you started this business, and we started off talking about you being an entrepreneur and doing, learning throughout your life about how to do business, what's important in how to execute, how to be successful, and all of that. What would you say as a business owner, as a founder of this company? What would you say are like the key elements that you think are crucial elements to make a small business, a startup, successful?
Yeah, you got to be willing to do the work. I think that's the most important part. And yeah, there's so many of these quotes. There's no elevator to success or whatever it is. You got to take the stairs. I don't know. There's so many of these things. They all come down to the same thing. You really have to do the work. This means that you gotta. When I first launched, my wife was pregnant and with a little we now know girl, and she's smiling at me, and we like, yeah, everything. She was pregnant, so all the dads that are on the show listening right now, they know exactly what it is. If your wife is 4 months pregnant, and you're going to say, hey, by the way, I'm not going to go search a new job. I'm going to go start this new company, and then you almost like whatever is close by, you'll get it thrown into your face. Luckily, I had the support from home that she had the calmness to say, oh, okay, dear. So that's number one. Then I got into an opportunity to do a small work, it was just a 5-day-a-week consulting job. And I said, okay, maybe it's good to make at least some amount of money. But I kept on going. So in the morning, I woke up at 6:30. I did the orders, printed the cards, bagged them up, went to the USPS, shipped them, and then at 9 o'clock I was at the office with a coffee in my hand to go start the day, work until 6, sometimes 7, go home, have dinner, make dinner, cook, have dinner, and then bring your wife to bed, then write some more code to do updates on the website or on the app, or send out some emails. So those were very, very long days. But if you don't do it, nothing's going to happen. So execution really is key. And there's so many people say, oh yeah, I had that idea. I said, okay, why didn't you do it?
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to choose my words over here, but yeah, ideas are like something, and there's lots of them. It's all about execution. Ideas are worthless. Ideas are blank.
Doing them. Yep. Yeah.
What else did you find is going to propel you to to the next level? So definitely a commitment, support from your family, right? Transition, if a fear is an element of, which almost always is, to kind of just sustain family and pay bills and all of that, then doing two things, basically that's where you need support of your family to kind of say like, hey, I'm trying to build this business. Please, support me during this time. And if it succeeds, we're all retiring or something.
Yes.
What else in terms of like funding, and like you're in New York, which is, the hub spot, although right now with the corona and everything is really, really hamstrung, and not a lot of people want to like meet up and all of that, I'm sure. But outside of that, what else can a small business do to kind of give itself an edge to succeed, and maybe even entice an investor to invest, or what are your thoughts on that? What can I do to kind of make it palatable for someone to invest in a business that I'm starting?
Yes, so I think it all starts, and then to get execution is the most important part. And then the second is communication, clear communication, speak your mind. So also at home, talk about what you want to achieve. Why is it so important to you? Try to not say, oh, you won't understand, but really sit down, talk about it, let somebody else ask questions, and practice yourself into, because it's going to be the first person that you're going to sell your product to is really the person next to you, whether that your partner in life, and no matter who or what that is, you're going to have to convince the first person that this is a good idea. Now you're going to hear no all the time. You're going to hear you're crazy or impossible, like we talked about also a lot of things. But
how do you deal with naysayers?
You can listen very carefully, and then this is the hardest thing in life, I think, is what to ignore and what to pay attention to. But usually a good rule of thumb for me is people that in the past have been right about things when it comes to your situation, and know you, that you trust, and there's the big word again, you should definitely pay a little bit more attention to than others. So that fine line between ignoring things or taking it in, listening, think about it, and trying to say to yourself, I'm not going to respond to that right now, let me think about it, sleep on it, and then do something with it or not. Those are the hardest things in life. So I don't have good advice for it other than that. Listen to it, and sometimes you got to say, okay, I'm going to come back to that.
Right.
But communication is also about how in 30 seconds explain to somebody what I'm doing. What do I want to achieve? Why am I doing it? Why is it so important to me? Why would it be important to you? And that's definitely something that I learned here in New York, and I learned it in a very, very cool way that I had never thought about it to be so important. But and I learned it very late in my life. So I think what I've learned here is that I hired a sales trainer for the sales team that I was building. And he dropped me. He said, "Okay, Peter, you hire me for a couple of days, and it's going to cost you a shit ton of money. And but hey, your people will be trained well." And so I hired a sales trainer. I said, "Well, I also want for free 3 hours of your time in the next 4 weeks, every Friday, an hour, to do some personal coaching." And he said, "Okay, one of those hours we're going to spend at the New York Executive Association." So I thought, "Oh, great, networking event." So I meet the guy 8:30, close to Grand Central, and there's a room full of people, 50, 60 people, all executives, entrepreneurs, all mixed together. And he said, "Good, are you ready?" With his mouth still full from a snack. And he said, "Here's first one, Peter, talk, introduce yourself." So I had to stutter my way through my pitch. And then the guy obviously laughing at me, like, "Okay, that's not how we do it in New York. Give him your card, ask for his card, shake hands, next." So this guy threw me around the room. In 60 minutes, I had 40 conversations. After 25, I was out of cards, and he smacks me in the face almost with a piece of salmon, saying, "Why did you only bring 25 cards?" I was like, "Because where I'm from, the Netherlands, you speak to 5 people in an evening, and you leave, and you say that was a successful evening." So, and it was just, by the end of the evening, my pitch was fluent. 30 seconds, I could tell anybody anything. We would immediately, like a speed dating session, know, hey, who are your vendors? Who are your customers? And then I can do the same thing. So either I can buy from him or sell to him, and he would know if he could buy from me or sell something to me. We would either help each other or not. And then you take the business card and go meet the next person. So 40 contacts in an hour. That's what I went through in like the first couple of weeks when I came to New York, and that's been so incredibly important to me because that has set the pace for how to do things here in the city.
That is, it's almost like speed dating.
Yeah, but it's possible, and people are not offended if you say thank you and then you move on, and I love it.
Yeah, very rapid exchange of feedback, right? Like, hey, this is what I offer, this is what you have, and let's see if this is a good fit. And like, it's not a personal thing. If I like, hey, I might not be needing what you have to offer right now, right? But it allows you to polish that pitch. What would you say were the key things that you found were critical for like having that polished pitch? If someone is like, hey, describe your business in 30 seconds, what were some of the things that you right now, like if you would tell me your pitch, what would it be like?
Yeah, you would have to be able to describe your product in a tag in a tweet, so 140 characters. That's one. 2, you have to explain to people what types of companies you do business with, so they can see if they can self-identify with it. And then you explain some of the results that people have gotten with your product. And then you ask them simply if they, if they see what out of that stood out or is important to you, or do you recognize any of that in your in how you do business? So for the Mobilo Card, it would be something like, hey, we're the smart business card that turns meetings into leads. We work with companies medium to large to solve their cost of business cards, to increase efficiency on their sales team, to increase data and insights on the networking events that you're seeing, and to save time and money on the whole process of the top of the funnel. And then the companies we work with are XYZ. I can't name any names at the moment because all the big ones are still in the beginning of the pipeline. And then you shake hands, say, hey, here's my card, try it yourself, sign up here, action, like call to action.
See, that's what I like about it. That's what I like about it. You can literally demo your business on the spot.
Yes.
I love that.
And then you say, do you mind if I call you tomorrow? How many people, so you ask a couple of qualification questions, say how many people are on your team. And then that's that, next steps.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Peter, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciated the time that you spent, and you kind of, hopefully this is something that you enjoyed as well, in terms of like being able to kind of share a little bit more about you, and again, that this podcast is about sharing valuable information and helping others as well. And so thank you again for being on the show. And if there's anything else that you want to kind of end up with, just any shout outs or anything else, you can do that right now. We'll pop it in over there, and whatever you want to say.
Thank you. I really appreciate taking the time, just having a good conversation. Obviously, with the whole situation right now, things we miss are human interaction outside of our lives at home, hanging at the bar with friends, just discussing things of the day. It's really important that our lives continue, and we as humans are programmed to want that social interaction. So everybody's longing for it, everybody is needing it. So it's really nice to just have a conversation. And I really appreciate, Adrian, you giving me that chance, that opportunity, sit down. And while you're talking, you're also always thinking about things and thinking back on things, looking back on things, and learning and talking about it. So I really like that. Shout outs for sure. We've gone through how important your support at home is. So any entrepreneur, please do not forget, whoever you have around you, they're living it with you. So for an evening to not do any work and to wrap your arm around somebody, bring home some flowers, or do anything to cook, whatever. It can be small gestures, don't have to be big gestures, but acknowledge that fact that you're not alone. That is definitely always worth a big shout out. And yeah, my team has worked tirelessly. We're already a small team. We're already 7 people. It's going fast, and everybody's working again with that mindset of this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it, and for the product, for our customers. So yeah, they definitely deserve a big shout out, and you too, Adrian. This is great.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. My wife is gonna be like, yeah, you see, he's not forgetting about flowers. But no, you're absolutely right. You are, it's not only you, it's not only your idea, it's the execution, it's the team, and it's all the people that are in your life that understand and support you. And especially nowadays when we are in these kind of a social distancing, space that we are. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the show, and I'm looking forward to getting a couple of cards and using them and just kind of spread the word. So good luck to you, and thanks for being on the show again. So if you enjoyed this conversation, please let us know. Drop some comments in the comments below, and let us know if this was interesting to you. What kind of revelations did you get out of this? What did you get out of what Peter shared over here with me? A lot of times it's the synthesis of different perspectives that we get that help us. And whether you are an entrepreneur or a person who is thinking about getting into starting your own business, hopefully the show is helping you connect with some of those different perspectives and ideas and lessons learned from the guests that we have on the show. So if you found it interesting, if you found it helpful, please consider subscribing to all of our channels and sharing this with in your social media circles. We really appreciate it. And until next time, I'm Adrian Sinclair, and this is a podcast with interesting people. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for listening to a podcast with interesting people. Please subscribe and leave a review or comment.
And support us by sharing our episodes on social media. We really appreciate it. And for more information, visit us at apodcast.com. Thanks.